Good morning. I'm Margaret Suggs, Margaret Ann Suggs, and I've come over from Ireland to be with you. I need my glasses to see what I'm doing here. One of the most perfect books that I've ever enjoyed is what I'm going to share with you today. And it's one of the most perfect books I've ever enjoyed because of what you can see and what you don't realize that you can see. So I think it's very good that I'm following Timmy's talk. I'm a big fan of book design. I'm a big fan of vintage books, and I'm an illustrator myself. So I want to talk to you today about what you can see and what you don't realize that you have seen. And the book that I'm using today, this is the title page here. It's A Peaceable Kingdom, the Shaker Abecedarius. The text was originally a poem, and the title of the poem was Rhymes of Animals, an alphabet verse. It was first published in 1882 in the Shaker Manifesto, which was just a periodical published by the Shakers for about 20 years at their peak. It was illustrated, as you can see here, by Alice and Martin Provensen. It was published in 1978 in New York by the Viking Press. And Leonard Marcus, who you might have heard of, he's a children's book critic for Parenting Magazine, for the New York Times, and for Hornbook. He called it one of the most striking American picture books of the 1970s. My point today is that it doesn't fit in the 1970s, but it's more timeless than that. It was awarded a medal at the 1979 Bologna Children's Book Fair, and I think it was very deserving. Now, just before I really start on my talk, I think I'd like to read you the story. It's not very long. It's an ABC book, so we're only going to go through, the English ABCs. And before the interpreters worry about it, it really is just a list of animals, and some of the animals you might not know the names of, but it's more about you hearing the rhythm and rhyme and seeing just getting a feel for the pictures, which I will show you some more on the screen, okay? So we've got A Peaceable Kingdom, Shaker Abecedarius, alligator, beetle, porcupine, whale, bobolink, panther, dragonfly, snail. Can you see that okay? Yeah. Crocodile, monkey, buffalo, hare, dromedary, leopard, mud turtle, bear. Elephant, badger, pelican, ox. Flying fish, reindeer, anaconda, fox. Guinea pig, dolphin, antelope, goose, hummingbird, weasel, pickerel, moose. Ibex, rhinoceros, owl, kangaroo. Jackal, opossum, toad, cockatoo. Kingfisher, peacock, anteater, bat, lizard, ichneumon, honeybee, rat. Mockingbird, camel, grasshopper, mouse, nightingale, spider, cuttlefish, grouse. Ocelot, pheasant, wolverine, auk, periwinkle, ermine, katydid, hawk. Quail, hippopotamus, armadillo, moth. Rattlesnake, lion, woodpecker, sloth. Salamander, goldfinch, angleworm, dog, tiger, flamingo, scorpion, frog. Unicorn, ostrich, nautilus, mole, viper, gorilla, basilisk, sole. Whippoorwill, beaver, centipede, fawn, xanthos, canary, pollywog, swan. Yellowhammer, eagle, hyena, lark. We're nearly there. Zebra, chameleon, butterfly, shark. The end. Yay. So I just wanted you to get a feel for the book. In my research, when I was investigating this story, I found the same text, but the illustrations were produced 25 years later. So if you'll show us the next slide there. So I wanted to show you some of the comparison. And here is the version that I read you is on the left, and then the newer version is on the right there. I'm not very good with left and right. I've got that correct, have I? Yeah. So just remember, the viewing that you are experiencing is not what a child would experience. With children, we would be very intimate, very close, maybe on the floor, maybe on the sofa, cuddled up. You're looking as a critical audience. But the design of the newer version, in comparison to the older version, the newer version was a collection of 5 different alphabets. So the one that I just read you was only one of the books within a book. And I want you to look at the format of the book, the background, the initial capital letters, so the big C there, the body type, the text placement, the use of the double-page spread, and then the unity between the elements. Because, like I was warning the interpreters, it's just a list of animals. Don't worry so much. In this book, we see crocodile, monkey, buffalo, hare. The animals are shown in the order that I read them. But in the new book, they're not necessarily. So if you don't know what those words are, you might not be able to match them up. And that does become an issue if you don't recognize some of the animals. Anyway, will you show us the next one there? The original illustrators, Alice and Martin Provensen, the second illustrator was a woman named Jan Barger. Her style is very simple and very bright, except for the gray pages. And I put this one here to show you the difference between the Provensen's use of a page of gray animals and the new illustrator's use of kind of a page of gray animals. And then the next one. I think I just put that there to show you the difference of color. Make sure my notes are right, yeah. And then just one more, please, to show you the difference between the two. This was another example. If you didn't know the difference between a yellowhammer and an eagle, the yellowhammer is the small bird, and the eagle is the big one. So in the old one, it's easier to see. Okay, so you're familiar with the text that I've read you. Are you familiar with the Shakers? Have you heard about Shakers? Yes. Okay, there were a breakaway sect from the Quakers, and you know the Quakers. They sought their religious freedom in the United States. They were a communal sect. Oh, go ahead and change the picture there. Yeah. This is some example of Shaker design. They were a communal sect, so they had shared wealth, shared living space, and they shared their workloads. They tried to be self-supporting, so they raised cattle, grew vegetables, and they built what they needed. So this is an example. This is part of their uniform. They would have worn very dark, plain uniforms because it was a community. The oval boxes, that's something that they would have produced to sell to the outside world. They weren't insular like the Amish. Okay, they did go out into the outside world, but they kept their sect to themselves as well. Okay, anyway, the oval boxes are something that you would note that the Shakers made. Then the brooms at the bottom. In Ireland, they call those witchy brooms. I guess because witches fly on them, whatever. Anyway, the Shakers were known for making those brooms and selling them to the outside world. And then the chair on the end is a typical Shaker-style chair. They celebrated their religion because this is why they had to leave America. They celebrated their religion by singing and dancing and speaking in tongues, which sounds really exciting, but they did it in a very orderly way. So the dancing was more synchronized. It was more like line dancing. They banned carnal relations of carnal nature, so there were no new baby Shakers ever. There were brothers and sisters that lived as brothers and sisters. And some of their philosophy and sayings were cleanliness is next to godliness, which kind of speaks to their use of brooms. Build a chair as if an angel will sit on it. They believed that things should be both beautiful and useful. And idle hands are the devil's workshop. I'd say all your mothers have told you that. So just watch for these kind of ideals to show up in our text. You're probably familiar with some of this style of Shaker furniture in that. The design is known for being plain and simple and elegant. They used natural materials where possible, and they used natural dyes where possible. So I found, fashion, uniforms. I found furniture. I found what they sold. Where's the illustration? Now, if you'll show us the next slide there. This is what I found as far as illustration work by the Shakers. They did not draw for pleasure, and they didn't draw for the beauty of or the experience of drawing. Everything was purposeful and practical. It could be beautiful, but it had to have a purpose. So what I did find were these, and they're called gift drawings. And I was like, oh, that's lovely, they're gift drawings. But it's not the kind of drawing that I would give to you. It was a drawing gifted from God to the person drawing. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So God gifted these drawings, and they're very naive in appearance. This one on the left is a map of one of the villages, and the houses are upside down and at angles. It's not well organized. It's very naive. It serves its purpose, and it looks nice. The one on the right I found terribly interesting. It's a family tree, and it's a family tree of the Shaker family tree. So we've got the hierarchy of the sect, and the founder of the sect is this top one. Let's see, just here. That's Mother Ann Lee. She saw herself as the second coming of Christ. The next one is the man that was her husband but became her brother because they can't have relations. The next one is her actual brother. And the one after that, oh, thank you. The one after that is Christopher Columbus, because apparently he discovered America, and that's where they went for their religious freedom. I thought that was really funny, but it gets better, because if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 6, that's Jesus. You don't think that number 6 being Jesus is funny? I thought that was class. Anyway, yes, Jesus was only number 6 because he was the first coming of Jesus and Anne was the second coming of Jesus. Okay, anyway, so this is the illustration that I found. And decorating the sides of the family tree are the little trees of life, and those become important in the text that I've read to you there. So give us the next slide there. To show you a little bit about the illustrators, Alice and Martin Provensen were a husband and wife team. They were born in the early 1900s, and they started working together in the 1940s. And these are some of the books that they produced that were award winners. They won a gold medal from the Society of Illustrators. They won the Caldecott Honor. They won the Caldecott Medal. And then the Maple Hill Farm series at the bottom right there, that's kind of their final series that they worked on together. So they worked in a few kind of closely related styles, but because they were trained in animation originally, their styles did kind of vary according to the projects that they were working on. Okay, and then the next slide for me. So this was published in America, and at the time of publication, it was 1978. So to give you a little background on what was going on in America, it was the bicentennial of America in 1976. So it was, the celebration of American independence, a very patriotic time. The Vietnam War had ended. Jimmy Carter was the president. But most importantly, the last few living Shakers were just a handful of elderly women. This sect, the Shaker sect, had been part of American history for hundreds of years, 200 years, and this sect was dying out, and we knew it was happening. So it's really my belief that the Provensens came along, knew that this was happening, and preserved the culture and the ideals in this book, knowing that once these few elderly women were gone, there were no more Shakers. So to my mind, this is kind of their legacy. And they're gone now too, bless them. So you see much more in the original version than you do in the modern version. Now, looking again at the design of the book, the next page there, the first thing you probably noticed when I opened it up, how long it is. It's a very long horizontal book, right? We're used to kind of an A4 size book now. And I was telling you, please look at the format. Well, this long horizontal is really underscored by this line that continues through the whole book. Did you notice that? You probably noticed it especially at the very end when the little boy was drawing the line, yeah? Where's it gone? The little boy kind of finishes his line, yeah? But that line goes through and it establishes that horizontal. And what it does, this long horizontal, it gives us space to draw the animals in the order that they're listed in the text. And order is a word that the Shakers liked. They danced in an orderly fashion, right? It sets the stage, that horizontal line sets a stage for the characters to kind of stand on. It unites the elements on the page, and it unites the pages to one another. So I also want you to notice that the book was definitely designed in consideration of the double page spread. Not so much just a single page and a single page, but a spread. It reads nearly like a frieze that would go around a room or something. The pictures go across the gutter and they bleed off to the left and to the right. The other thing that you might have noticed straight away, even if I hadn't told you, is that it's an alphabet book. So your giveaway is big giant letters. Just show us the next one there. The big letters. It sets off the idea that it's an alphabet book, but they're not so much singled out. They're actually incorporated into the design of the book. On this one, we've used the H to put the basket of flowers to show off the hummingbird, right? The letter tends to overlap. It goes above the line and below the horizontal line that we were talking about. So it links what's above with what's below. And then the next one, the next slide, sorry. This is probably my favorite use of the capital letter. This little goat here, the Ibex, it's a mountain goat, and they're known for climbing and scrambling up hills. So the Ibex has climbed up on top of the I, and now he's being used for the laundry line. I think that's really lovely. Now, the rhinoceros doesn't look as happy about it, but, oh no, go back for 1 second. There was something I wanted to say there. There wasn't something I wanted to say there. You can go to the next one, sorry. So this is a photograph that I found. Now, there weren't a lot of photographs of the Shakers, even though photography was well used. The Shakers didn't use photography themselves. So any photographs we found were from outsiders taking photographs. I found this picture of a Shaker lady hanging out the laundry and the basket, and you see the reflection of what the Provensens drew in their illustration. And just to point out, the little girl there, she would have been an adopted orphan. After the American Civil War, there would have been a lot of orphans, and the Shakers did take in children. You could join the sect, but you couldn't actually have children naturally once you joined. So anyway, she would have been adopted. And I wanted to show you the baskets on the other side. They made their own baskets, and they would have used these, for laundry, for gathering flowers, vegetables, whatever. And they're there in a communal area with the little labels as to what they're meant to be used for. So again, the idea of Shaker orderliness. The next slide, please. So think about the Shakers' need for order, and then in the book, the use of rhyme. Well, what comes with order and rhyme? Rhythm. Yeah? Look at the text. How did I know how to read that? How did I get the rhythm of that? Okay, the giant G, guinea pig, dolphin, antelope, goose. Okay, you've all seen Harry Potter, so you know anything written in all capital letters, that's a howler, that's a screaming word. So my punch goes with the big letter and the capital letters. And then the other letters kind of flow in a row. So we have there guinea pig, dolphin, antelope, goose, hummingbird, weasel, pickerel, moose. And did you pick that up when I was reading it? I knew how to read it because the text told me how. The color of the text, it's black, but it's a friendly, old-fashioned serif kind of face, and it's not 100% black, maybe an 80% black, so it's not very harsh. Then the next slide, please. What other text did you notice? I'd say the people in the front row might have seen this. I guarantee you down the back didn't. If there was more intimate viewing, you would have seen what the little tiny text at the top of this slide, that's quite a big enlargement. There are these little Shaker mottos kind of sprinkled through the book, and they're about 5-point text, maybe italic, hand-lettered, really small. And it adds texture to the picture without distracting. But if you go back to read them, they express Shaker ideals. So you've got, whoever makes a thing more bright, he is an angel of all light. A man of kindness to his beasts is kind, but brutal actions show a brutal mind. And then there's one that says, come gather under my wings of peace. Now these show up on all but 4 spreads. So the Provensens took the time and effort to go find what the Shakers believed in and sprinkled them through the book. They're like a whisper. They're very small and unnoticeable the first time, but maybe the child would ask you, Mommy, what does that say? Then there's other quite subtle things. The color of the page. Now, people would say, that's a 40-year-old book. The pages have browned. But it's not. Well, it is a 40-year-old book. But the pages were printed to look old. They were meant to look old from the very beginning. Show us that next slide there. You've kind of got these aged kind of spots on them as well. It's maybe tea-stained, aged-looking. It makes the book more intimate, more personal, and maybe more precious. What do you do with older things? You're more careful with them. You protect them, you guard them. It complements, this tea-stained color complements the really delicate color scheme, which is based on natural dyes, which, again, the Shakers would have used. So just show us the next slide there. This was an example of some of the natural dyeing that the Shakers did. Now, I put their garden seeds, the little garden seed box, because that fits with the previous slide, but just to show you the yarns there that are dyed. They used natural earthy tones. Now, natural dyes will fade more with age, so you do have that. Can you go back to the previous slide there? See the little seed boxes down there. This shows a pea sheller, and a pea sheller was a Shaker invention. So you wouldn't know that necessarily, but it's there. You've seen it now. Another thing to point out is the Provensens' intentionally naive look to the characters that they drew. It is to enhance and complement the fact that the book is based on Shaker design. The figures are very static, they're very stiff and very posed, and I especially like the little girl pointing at the toad. Her feet are like this, like first position in dance, and she's pointing. And then the lady with the basket, she has no elbows. She's just putting the peas in like this. So that's intentional naivete. Also, there's a lack of perspective, and there's a lack of scale. So skip down to, I think it's 2 down. One more, yeah. Here we go. This one, there's an intentional lack of scale. Look at the bumblebees around the flowers over there. They're the same size as the flowers. That's a very large bee. And the rat could probably eat the poor little girl over here if that kingfisher doesn't peck her head off first, because they're so big. But it doesn't really bother us because of the naive drawing style that's used. I've got one more there. No, the next one. A few more interesting things, a few more links to the Shaker design and ideals. Yeah, the next one, sorry. Some of these ideals are shown explicitly, some are offered implicitly. The rhythmic text links to the Shakers' rhyming, their rhythmic dance, their orderliness, the orderliness of the pictures. But throughout, all the people in the book are wearing the costume, the kind of uniform that they would have worn. Women had white caps, dark dresses with aprons. Men wore hats, black in the winter and straw in the summer. So here you've got the children dressed for summer and the man dressed for winter. And the idea of covering the head, you were meant to cover your head in the presence of God. And then the next slide, please. They show a round barn. Round barns were uniquely Shaker inventions. So I found a picture, the photograph, again, there were not as many photographs of Shakers as there could have been because they didn't take photographs. But the round barn, that one was in Kentucky, and it's since been knocked down. But thankfully, we have it preserved in the book for us. Then the next slide there. I mentioned the Shaker Brooms, and the Shaker Brooms make an appearance in the book as well, though they're not specifically mentioned. The woodpecker and the sloth are. The brooms are hung, they should be hung the way this one is, but some of them are hung this way. And this is a little mistake that I found in the illustrations. Here are the original Shaker brooms that they created. Do you see on this letter C, there's a little leather strap. That's what they should have hung it from, because actually gravity wouldn't have held the broom up that way. Does that make sense? But it is a nice place for the woodpeckers to rest, so I'll let them away with that. See, there's one other one there. The hat maker is next, I think. There he is. This is one I put in to show you the unique lack of perspective. That's a work table. So, of course, everything's going to slide right off of that. Let's see. There's also a separation of genders. Male and female children might occupy the same page, but male and female adults are always separated. They're not appearing on the same page. There's one page, I think there's a driver, but the lady is in the back of the carriage. And then the next page. The last thing there is the belief that idle hands are the devil's workshop. And I was telling you, you've all heard this. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. In every single picture, the people are working at some kind of chore, or they're working, okay? They're churning butter, they're making hats, they're shoeing horses. This one's making wheels. He's a wheelwright. And you know what I was telling you about the brooms and gravity? Look at the fawn. What's going to fall on his head soon? No? See the big hammer's about to fall on that deer? Anyway, and the centipede is huge as well. So we know that idle hands is the devil's workshop. We've got to keep everybody working. So show us the next slide there. This one, I was saying, okay, so what's he doing? What is he doing? Sorry? Petting the lion. No. He's working. Okay, what is this tree? Yes, it's the tree of life. We saw the trees of life. If you'll show us the next slide and then come back to this one, sorry. It's a tree of life. Okay, and then go back. But what's wrapped around it? The rattlesnake? So the snake in the tree tells us that the tree is the tree of knowledge from the Garden of Eden. So now what is he doing? He's preaching. Yeah, he's preaching. And the lion is very important. He is kind of like, he's very calm around a lion. So we know he's a preacher. He's a man. We know that's the tree of life, or the tree from the Garden of Eden. We know that the lion is there. And where else have we seen this lion? Just show us the next slide there. Oh no, one more again, sorry. No, the other way, sorry. Go to the end. There. This is where we've seen the other lion on the cover, right? But the difference is what here? The lamb. Are you not Christians? Come on, kids. What does it mean when the lion lays down with the lamb? It's prophesied in the Bible. When the lion lays down with the lamb, we will have the achievement of perfect peace, and we will live in a perfect kingdom, or a peaceable kingdom. Right? So to me, this is the perfect book that teaches you not just explicitly, but implicitly as well. And that's all I have to say about that. So thank you very much. Margaret.